Good afternoon. My name is Chris Ladden with Youth Pledge for Employers, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sally from Woodlands Bakeaway. Hello there, Sally.
Hello, Chris.
Hello. Thanks for giving me your time this afternoon. I know you're a busy person, but I guess my sort of start for 10 question has to be, can you tell us about Woodlands Bakeaway and what it is you do?
We make fudge, which we call gourmet fudge. It's not just cut up into little squares like fudge often is. It's made in different shapes. So each flavor is a different shape, which makes it quite special. And we have 10 flavors. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm not saying you didn't wake up one day when you were younger and you were like, you know what, I want to have my own business making fudge. I mean, if you did have that process, then well done on you and fulfilling your life's ambition. But sort of, what was your sort of career journey like? Or how did you sort of find yourself where you are now?
Yeah, well, no, I didn't wake up one morning and decide that at all. Basically, my daughter wanted to make occasions cakes. So we decided the route to start would be to go to markets, so sell cakes at outdoor markets and indoor markets. There's a lot of farmers markets around and craft markets as well. And we found that the cake market is possibly a little bit overcrowded. So we had to think of something a bit more special, and that's how we came up with the fudge.
That's amazing. And what kind of people are sort of involved in the everyday sort of running of the business? And how did you go from, as you say, coming up with this sort of idea of being like, okay, fudge is sort of a different sort of part of the market to target? How did you then go to actually that becoming a sort of business in itself, if you see what I mean?
Well, to be quite honest, it actually took us quite by surprise ourselves. It was meant to be a hobby, but it's ended up just about a full-time thing. And we started off just doing it as an extra, just as something for fun. And then we realized it was so popular, and because it's in shapes, it's very different. And yeah, people were just taken with the idea because it's a nice gift. So you can put it into, we have sort of fancy boxes and put it into, you can buy it as a gift, give it away.
That's brilliant, and it's interesting to hear, as you say, how it went from, as you say, almost like an extra or something you were doing in pastime to, as you say, now a full-on business. And are there sort of areas of business you had to learn about as it sort of progressed? So, as you say, like as it got busier and more in demand, did you have to learn, sort of about, I say, finding out about different suppliers to get, and whether it's containers to put the fudge in, or equipment, or how to market your products? Are there sort of areas of business like that you had to sort of discover as you went along?
Yeah, absolutely. And we are still learning all the time. But the main areas, being a product, a food product, we had to look at what sort of government, what's the word? Government things.
Yeah, like rules and legislations. Yeah,
legislation, that's the word.
Yeah.
You need a food hygiene rating, so you have to have your kitchen inspected, because I'm doing it from home. So someone had to come out from the health department to come and check the kitchen. And then there's a lot of legislation around packaging, which you don't always think about that sort of thing until you're in it. And then the other thing is buying in bulk. You can buy your ingredients. You can we just started off buying our ingredients from Tesco or Aldi, whichever had the best price. But then you have to, once you scale it up, you need to get things in bulk instead of, going back to the shop for another packet of sugar every day. You can rather buy it in big bags. So those are probably the two main things that we've had to learn about, particularly the legislation, because there's a lot of legislation around allergies and that sort of thing now.
It's really interesting hearing the process, because this sounds like with a lot of businesses that people might have, as I say, hobbies that they're passionate about, whether it's as I say, to do with cooking, or maybe if someone is involved in, I know, say, crafts, or something to do with fashion, and then it's always interesting seeing how that actually transfers to business. And do you find now that sort of, as you say, that it's gone from something you were doing in your spare time, sort of because you enjoyed it, to being a sort of almost, as you say, like a full-time thing? Do you feel that it's taken the enjoyment out of it at all? Does it make you even more proud of it? How does it actually make you feel about the product you're producing?
Actually, I still love it, and I love doing the markets. I particularly love engaging with people and doing markets and getting out there and seeing what other products are on the market too. You know, other people who've got these amazing skills. That's what I love about the markets, is they're very varied, and there's everyone there that is an artist in some way. And I really love doing that. I don't mind the cooking because I love cooking.
Yeah.
So to me, you know, I thoroughly enjoy cooking.
That's brilliant. And you've touched a little bit on there about like sort of what the good parts of the, this are. So as you say, you spend your time doing the cooking, which you love doing the cooking. You love, as you say, going to the markets and seeing what other people are doing. What have been the sort of challenging parts along the way? So as you say, as everything has scaled up, what have you found have been like the sort of biggest challenges for you to sort of get used to in your sort of new operation?
Probably the weather, because you're out. When you do the outside markets, you are outside. It's very cold, particularly in winter. So the weather is probably my biggest challenge. I don't actually mind the cold. I've learned how to wrap up warmly, how to cope with it. But you can have rainy days where you sort of stand under this gazebo all day and it's freezing cold and it's raining. But yeah, I mean, you just overcome them.
I was about to say, is that on those days when your sort of passion for what you're doing is most needed? Because as you say, sort of it's easy, probably easier to go out and enjoy selling things on a bright sunny day at an outdoor market. But as you say, if it's a bit of a grim, wet day, is that when you sort of, as you say, need to be most passionate, most resilient?
Yeah, and you get used to it. You find ways of coping with it. You just take a flask of hot water and, so you can make your coffee, and you find ways of coping about it. And it doesn't seem so cold anymore when you're getting good sales and people are cheerful, and yeah,
Yeah.
you just get
No,
used to it.
it's really interesting to hear, and sort of comparing, as you say, sort of the way your business has sort of evolved and scaled up there, based on the sort of the experiences you've had. Imagine we've got a young person watching this video and maybe they've got a passion or product or something that they want to actually sort of, as I say, grow into a business. What sort of lessons have you learned so far that you would actually probably advise them to do? Or maybe have you made any mistakes we'd actually say to them, I'd advise doing this in advance? Or what piece of advice would you give?
Well, one of the reasons why I agreed to do this is because I think it is something that young people could do, that they could really enjoy, take their craft or their something that they enjoy doing and actually make money out of it. And yeah, I think you just learn as you go along, and you have to just ask. You have to ask other people who've been doing it for a longer time. Just ask them, how did you do this, or where can I find that? And you just have to ask questions.
And what kind of areas, so with you in that position, what kind of questions were you asking other people? What kind of areas did you need information on, sort of as you say, as your business has scaled up?
And well, for the markets, it was particularly where else can I sell my products? What other markets can I do? And then you'll get contact names, because that's not that easy to find. So that was a big thing for me. Was I started off at one market, and then I would just ask the other stall holders, where else do you go? What other markets do you do? Possibly also which are the good ones, which markets would be better for my products. Because sometimes you might go to a market and not really sell very much.
Yeah, and based on what you said there, like if we look at sort of the skills that someone might need to do this, obviously they need to have good communication skills and the ability to ask questions, as you sort of said there, because as I say, you need to find out more about the as I say, yeah, whether it's the places you can sell your product, the areas where it might be good, areas where maybe it needs improving. Other than sort of communication, are there any sort of softer skills that you think actually, if someone was going to do this, it's really useful for them to have?
Yeah, you do need to be able to communicate, and that's a big thing. You need to like people and be able to engage. I'm not saying that you wouldn't sell your products if you didn't do that, but I think it's better to be able to engage with people. Possibly, you might need a little bit of business sense, in that you need to know what your product is costing you and what you can sell it for. There's no point in doing it if you're not going to make any money. Well, I don't think there's any point in doing it. The point of selling your product is to make some money, even if it's just some extra pocket money. But Yeah, I think you could do with a bit of business knowledge. What is it costing me? What can I sell it for?
And touching on that business knowledge, when as say with the business you're in now, is that something you had to learn and teach yourself? Was that something you had experience from previously?
Um, I did experience previously. I worked for my dad. My dad had his own business. When we were in South Africa, and then I've worked for various people part-time. So I did probably had a little bit of experience with that. But there's so much online that can help you these days. You can just Google things, Google how do I make a profit? That
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's so easy to look up things online. There's so much help available that
I
I think it's something you can quite easily find out.
I completely agree with that, and I've spoken to lots of sort of employers, people who set up their own businesses and this kind of thing. When I've been doing these kind of talks, and every time I speak to someone who's sort of set up their own business or had to research something, they all tell me about the how many amazing online free resources there are, or how much you can get from simply googling, as you say, how do I sell more, or those kind
Yeah.
of things. And as I say, it's really interesting hearing about actually how much there is already out there for someone if they're just willing to go and do the research into it.
Yeah, I don't think you need to, if you're selling a product that you make yourself, that's something quite arty, like perhaps painted pictures or some cards, homemade cards. You don't exactly need to be a business whiz to do that, because that's your passion. You love doing it and you're doing it for fun. But if you are wanting to make it a business, it's probably a good idea to get a little bit of business knowledge.
No, that's a really interesting insight, and I appreciate that, Sally. And it sort of leads me quite nicely onto my final question, actually. And I've asked this to all the employers I've spoken to, and you've touched on a little bit there about sort of your career journey, the different places you've worked for, and the lessons you've learned. And let's imagine you could go back and speak to, say, 17-year-old Sally. You're about to go out and say on your sort of career journey, taking into account the things you've learned, maybe the successes you've had, mistakes you've made. What's the one piece of career advice you would give to your younger self?
Probably to do something that you love, something that you enjoy doing. I mean, I fully realize that life isn't made up of doing everything we like, but I think it is important, if you've got a particular craft or a skill or something you enjoy doing, do that. Find some way of improving and selling it and making it available for other people.